May happen, we have come up with a best estimate at the lower end of this scale, which is around 1.8 degrees Celsius, and a best estimate at the upper end, which we have determined as 4 degrees Celsius. Now, even with the lower best estimate of 1.8 degrees Celsius, and given the fact that temperature increase during the 20th century was an average of 0.74 degrees Celsius, we would find that if this projection was to materialize at the lower end of the best estimate, then clearly in 2 centuries, the average temperature of this planet would have increased by about 2.54 degrees Celsius. And this, of course, will not be uniform. For instance, the Arctic region is warming at twice the rate of the rest of the planet on average. Therefore, the Mediterranean region, which is likely to see heat waves, is perhaps likely to be affected in terms of a range of human activities and impacts. It is crucially important that the Mediterranean region, therefore, through this climate change initiative, comes up with a coordinated strategy by which adaptation can take place to the impacts of climate change. What are some of the major impacts that we need to be concerned about as far as the Mediterranean is concerned? Firstly, as I've mentioned, there would be much greater reduction in water availability than we have seen so far. There would certainly be more prolonged droughts, and therefore, as a result, there would be an impact on such biodiversity. And I should also once again highlight the fact that there would be an impact on tourism. So, signals, and these essentially would rely on placing a price on carbon, but also through a whole range of regulation and legislative action. Buildings, for instance, would require local regulations by which completion of these buildings will have to be accompanied by a clear assurance that they are constructed and designed in a manner that would ensure energy efficiency on creating sustainable habitat and cities that hopefully over a period of time could become carbon neutral, bring about a change in the world, then be the change you want to see in the world. And therefore the Mediterranean region, which has really been the cradle of civilization in the past, which has provided enlightenment to the rest of humanity, really has a unique opportunity today to understand the science of climate change, to be able to assess the impacts that are going to take place in the future based on the enormous amount of scientific effort that is being made worldwide today, and to be able to adopt and promote a system of development which is ecologically sensitive, which is also going to be an important part of the solution at the global level in stabilizing the Earth's climate, and that clearly attempts to reach a pattern of development. It was my desire and hope that I would be able to make it to Athens physically. Unfortunately, conflicts in schedule prevent me from being with you today, but I would like to convey my heartiest congratulations to the Minister for taking this initiative, and I wish you all the best.
If I could ask the first panel to, while the panel does come forward, just a word, if I might, to underscore Dr. Pachauri's point. I think everybody here knows that there are large uncertainties and different models have different predictions about climate future. It is unfortunately the reality, unfortunately the truth, that all models that are run by the IPCC show the same trend for the Mediterranean. In other words, this is one of the regions where the scientific certainty is highest. The phenomenon of drying is an underpinning of the basic science, and that's what the region needs to deal with. Now, one major point that is the natural lead-in for this session, all of the forecasts that you heard are business as usual forecasts. This initiative, of course, stands for something very different from business as usual. It is for the voice of this region to be heard globally, to tell the United States, to tell China, to tell others who are the main actors right now in the largest emissions, that they have to join with Europe and join with other regions to get this right. And this, I think, is one of the key purposes, of course, for this region to prepare itself, for this region to lead technologically, and for this region's voice to be heard so that business as usual is not the actual trajectory for the 21st century, because we hear how dangerous that would be. We have an outstanding panel to get us started in this, because all of the panelists are doers, negotiators, practitioners, leaders in this. The charge of the first panel is to ask from Copenhagen to Cancun, Cancun coming up in just a few weeks, end of November, early December, the so-called COP16, the Conference of the Parties, the 16th meeting since ratification of the UN Framework Convention in 1994. How are we going to make progress? And so it's really a pleasure to have such expertise. I will now sit down and introduce the panel and have them make their remarks. So I'd like to turn first to a leading figure in Europe, and very well known here, of course, to former Commissioner for the Environment, Stavros Dimas, to hear remarks on how we can use Cancun to make a breakthrough and how Europe's leadership in this area can effectively reach the rest of the world. Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sachs. You said previously that what we say here will be heard or should be heard in the United States. I'll read you something from yesterday's New York Times, an article about Congressman, poor Congressman Hill. I read it. It's from correspondence from the town of Jasper, Indiana. At a candidate forum here last week, Representative Baron Hill, a threatened Democratic congressman in a largely conservative southern Indiana district, was endeavoring to explain his unpopular vote for the House Cap-and-Trade Energy Bill. About sustainability. But you will permit me to say that going from Copenhagen to Cancun, we have to go via Michigan. And unfortunately, the main obstacle right now, as it has been shown in China a few days ago, 2 weeks ago, is the fact that the United States is not moving. And if the United States is not moving on climate change, for example, Turkey or Egypt have not associated themselves to the Copenhagen Accord because they have special problems, and it is our duty face them and treat them accordingly. It's very positive that Turkey in 2009 ratified the Kyoto Protocol. And make again another parenthesis, Mr. Prime Minister, I was using in communicating our European Union objectives regarding climate change, especially via television. You were very good there, and I told you that. Now, what will happen in Cancun? In China, we didn't make much progress. Actually, even perhaps the problems appeared bigger, and some countries did not appear to be constructive. It's leadership. In order to have a global, binding agreement to fight climate change, we need strong political leadership and courage to resist the vested interests that defend the high carbon status quo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I think your last sentence is very telling, because have no doubt who's funding a lot of the Tea Party. It is major oil industries in the United States, much of it anonymous, but much of it well understood. So it's not completely accidental. The confusions of a very confused country, that would be mine. But there's a lot of money behind that, and that's part of the real issue here. Let me turn next to Peter Vis, who is chef de cabinet of European Commissioner Connie Heidegger.
Thank you very much, Professor Sachs. So I've got a relatively short message. Of course, the EU still wants a global deal, a global treaty on climate change, such as we had hoped might be agreed in Copenhagen. No reason for slowing our own level of ambition in the European Union as an example to other parts of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and for the Commission's continued leadership on this, which, as you rightly say, is so important for the whole world. Let's next turn to another crucial financier of the transition to a low-carbon economy, great multilateral institution, the World Bank, and to hear from Shamshad Akhtar, Vice President for the Middle East and North Africa.
Thank you, Professor Jeffrey. It's a delight to be here. I'm an economist, not a climate change specialist or an expert. I think it's important to recognize at the outset that climate change is changing the economics, and it finances climate-related actions. About 2.1 billion has been provided for low-carbon projects, and about $1 billion for
Thank you very much for underscoring the very practical areas: water, food security, coastal zone management, urban sustainability, and solar power that you have under finance. And I'm sure that the EIB and the World Bank will work together in some of the complex project financing that will be needed, and this gives a real opportunity for some breakthroughs. Our final panelist is a very well-known leader in global environment, former Minister of Environment of France, and currently the ambassador in charge of international negotiations for climate change for France. And also, not only, of course, a leader very well known internationally in his own right, but also France will be the chair of the G8 and the G20 next year, and so we'll have a very, very key role in helping to steer the global initiative. So, Minister Lalonde, very welcome, and we look forward to your words.
Thank you very much, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the point. I would like to say three things. First thing, Cancun. We are expecting, working for, a set of decisions, the decisions on what is mature, ripe. So we think we can have a... Now, what is the political direction of this set of decisions? And this, I would say, on behalf of my own country. What is the deal we would suggest? Well, as you know, we have an heritage. We have inherited all the juridical instruments from 92, the summit Planet Earth, and from 97, the Kyoto Protocol. As you know, in 92, we separated, the negotiators at that time separated the world in developed and developing. Developed and developing at that time, that's the problem. So the first have some obligations, the Kyoto Protocol, which all countries now in the world have a climate policy. Whether good or not, whether enough or not, they have it. And lots of things are happening with local, national developing banks.
Thank you very much. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. They really love international taxes in Indiana, I can tell you. Actually not. So we're going to have to call it shared.
Mrs. Birbili, who is Minister, it's interesting, of Environment, Energy and Climate Change for Greece. So please, Ms. Birbili.
Thank you very much. The title of the ministry tries to connect both days, today, which is the Climate Day, and tomorrow, which is the Green Development Day. So thank you very much, dear Prime Ministers, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and dear friends of mine. It is a pleasure and privilege to be part of the try to address the root cause of the problem so as to reduce the impact with the minimum possible disruption. Members of other established groups to act on climate issues. A group that may, because of this...
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Thank you very much. You explained very clearly what is the purpose of this initiative. Do some of your colleagues react on this? No reaction for the moment. Maybe it will be easier if we start from existing initiatives and partnership. There are already several climate change initiatives or projects which have emerged in the countries of the region. How can we ensure that we can learn from each other's experience? How can we share the best practices developed in the region? Maybe the Egyptian minister could take the floor. Again, it's a minister for environmental affairs, Minister Maged George. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Philip. Since this is the first time for me to take the floor, I would like to start off by thanking the government of Greece for its generous hospitality, and for Mediterranean countries should indeed take the lead in fulfilling their commitments to mitigate and adapt to climate change, bearing in mind the principle of common but different shores of the Mediterranean and determining the specific economy-wide CO2 emissions reductions in a light of the current threats and adverse effects of climate change that is not bound only to sea level rise, but includes also issues like desertification and fluctuation of temperatures, and negatively affects our efforts to achieve food security. My fourth point relates to the two critical issues of financing and technology transfer. Financing is a prerequisite element in any adaptation strategy. If we are bound to record progress, both in develop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. On the theme of the lessons to be learned from existing initiatives, maybe some of your colleagues would like also to take the floor. Yes, please. And
Cyprus.
Yes, Mr. Minister, I'm sure you have something to say about this. Please, you have the floor.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ, κύριε Πρόεδρε. Στην αρχική σας ομιλία είχατε κάνει μία αναφορά στην Κύπρο. Να μου επιτρέψετε από τις εμπειρίες μας για την αντιμετώπιση του υδατικού προβλήματος. Έχουμε αρκετούς υδατοφράκτες για μας.
Thank you, Minister, for this overview of the Cypriot experience, which is indeed quite interesting to to follow. May I remind you that there are 14 panelists, so I should ask each of you to try to shorten his intervention. I think that on this topic, the Minister Anton from Romania could take the floor. Yeah. Welcome. So,
Romanian, Romania. First of all, I want to thank the Greek government for this initiative that Italy supports with conviction. And in order to give you some concrete experience of the Italian government.
Anton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen.
Good basis for realization of such common goals with joint efforts. We are committed to further implementation of the goals of the initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. The organizers invite to Minister Dulic, Minister of Environment, for several.
Thank you very much. Organizasyondan dolayı Yunanistan hükümetine ve değerli meslektaşım İklim Değişikliği Çerçeve Sözleşmesi'nin temel prensiplerinde ortak fakat farklılaşmış sorumluluklar ilkesine dayananların dikkate alarak derhal harekete geçmeli ve karbonlu ekonomilere geçiş süreçlerini hızlandırmalıdırlar. Sayın katılımcılar, hepimiz Doğu Akdeniz Havzası'nda biri olarak ifade edilmiştir. Bu yüzden güçlü ve koordineli bir işbirliğinin içinde olmamız gerektiği açıktır. Bu ile mücadele yolunda çok çeşitli azaltım tedbirleri almamız gerektiği de ortadadır. Bu kapsamda Türkiye yenilebilir tam olarak kullanılabilir hale getirmektir. Hidroelektrik potansiyelimizin kullanımı için yapılan düzenleme ile özel sektörlerin açılmıştır. Haliz bulunmaktadır. Bu çerçevede 2008 ile 2013 yıllarını kapsayan 5 yıllık dönemde
dans ce cadre, depuis 40 ans, nous militons contre ce phénomène. Actuellement, nous avons, chaque année, on va planter 1 million d'arbres pour un peu stopper l'avancée du désert méditerranéen. Et ces deux grands groupes mondiaux pour en tout cas pouvoir faire du lobbying. Le deuxième point que nous pouvons apporter, ce matin j'ai écouté le président de la Banque d'investissement européenne qui parlait des énergies renouvelables, qui sont extrêmement importantes pour notre zone. Nous leur disons seulement que la Mauritanie c'est un pays d'abord géographiquement qui n'est pas loin de la Méditerranée et qui a un grand potentiel dans le domaine de solaire.
Please, please, excuse me. Everybody. Oh, when I hear what's your new position? Just a moment. Just a moment. Hello. Sit, guys. Sit here.
Okay, we'll go for that list, but we also decided to be me, him, and the minister. Come on.
That takes so much time with us, and also it's
start action.
Later. Böyle basacağım çeviri.
Fidan üretim konusunda bir takip etti.
Majority is from
responsible.
Okay.
You can start.
Used to be the Minister of Mediu. Nice to meet you.
And the problem is when we send it back, we get.
Thank you. Signing ceremony. The Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Spiros Kouvelis, is kindly requested to take the floor.
Excellencies, Ministers, Ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to be here at this very moment, I think an historic moment in the efforts of peoples and of political leaders to curb climate change and to draw the line for a new path of development for the world. And in doing so, I would like to share one or two thoughts with you. The first one, that few people actually realize that when we're talking about the natural environment of the Mediterranean, we're talking about an environment that is not really natural. It's very much man-made. And this is why, for many years, this is actually the